Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Resume Revive Career Services YouTube channel. It is your go to channel for all of the things career related. And today, I am so excited to have a very special guest with me today as we talk about the importance of career reflection at the end of the year and how it helps you to look back and think about where you would like to be on your career journey moving forward in the upcoming year. Miss Patrice Lindo is the CEO of Career Nomad and a dynamic leader with over 17 years of experience in management consulting, partnering with CEOs and senior executive across healthcare, financial services, consumer products, and technology sectors. She has extensive experience working with some of the largest firms in the industry. Patrice specializes in leadership development, organizational change, management, and team dynamics, helping organizations drive sustainable growth and innovation. She is also known for her R&A method, rebrand, network, achieve recognition, which empowers professionals and teams to unlock their full potential. A passionate advocate for leadership excellence and career empowerment, Patrice's expertise helps leaders cultivate high performing teams, rebrand their internal cultures, and achieve recognition on a global scale. Her work continues to transform businesses and individuals, offering fresh strategies for success in an ever evolving marketplace. So, I would like to welcome Patrice to the Resume Revive YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for having me, Kamiki. I am so looking forward to this. The timing for this could not be better as we, stare the end of 2024 in the face and welcome in 2025. This conversation is right on time.
Yes, it is. And as we wrap up this year, it's a natural time for professionals to start thinking about challenges they have had over the year
Mhm,
and those lessons learned that they need to take the time to reflect on, as well as achievements that they've had. And
mhm,
then they start to think about how they can take all of this information and really make improvements in their career for the upcoming year. So
mhm.
I would like to ask you, Patrice, how does this season offer a unique opportunity for professionals to evaluate their current career path?
Well, just like you said, as one thing is ending, something else is starting up. So it's that perfect moment for people to really think about what they have done and what they'd like to do and how they can really take all that information and rebrand. In other words, taking a hard look at how they were positioned this year, for example.
Mhm.
Were they, in a position where they didn't like their job or that they really excelled at their job? Are there things that they really enjoy doing? Or they really didn't? Or is there something that has interested them that they did a little bit that they'd like to do more of? As they are thinking about that, they really have to ask themselves, remember that song by Michael Jackson, A Man in the Mirror? They have
Yes.
to ask, are they presenting the professional image that aligns with their future goals? So, for
Mhm.
example, you and I were talking about, ourselves just before we got on this call. And I said to you that I have decided I want to be more visible. So, how can I do that? More speaking engagements, opportunities like this, talking to you, but intentionally putting myself out there because when I reflected on that, I want to be on stages like, the TED stage, for
Mhm.
example, giving
Yeah.
a TED talk or, some other global stage. Well, if I want to go out there and do that, then I have to start somewhere. And starting somewhere is, well, where can I go on smaller stages and,
Mhm.
build that muscle and get that exposure and make the connections so that I can adjust my branding, right? So that as I start next year, I can say, looking back, well, 2024, I had 10 speaking engagements. The year
Mhm.
before, I had two,
That's
right?
right.
How
Mhm.
many more people now know or organizations now know that I am a professional speaker and what I speak about? How many more people have come to me because of those connections?
Mm-hmm.
For example. So, this is what people need to do to really help them gain clarity on how well they're positioning themselves, where they can shift things if they need to. And as they're doing so, really position themselves because they are starting to what? Recognize within
Mm-hmm.
themselves what needs to change or what needs to be adjusted or what they want to focus on. And so, if they begin to think of what those things are and really reflect on those right now, they could create a hit list of things that they have done
I
and
like
then a
that.
list of things they'd like to do. And I have a tool that I created. It's called a recognition checklist, and this could help them do that. So after this, I'll share it with you so you can
Mm-hmm.
share it with your audience. In this recognition checklist, they can highlight the achievements that they have either done and like to do more of,
Mm-hmm.
or the ones that they would like to target to do for next year based on the work they did this year. There's something that happens, there's magic in writing things down. I
It
know this
is.
generation is not very big on writing. It's more, putting it in the phone, but whatever way, getting it out of your head and in front of you so that your brain metabolizes that
Mm-hmm.
information is really key. So start the way you want to finish. And in this case, we're going to start the end of this year the way they'd like to finish next year by looking forward into what those goals look like to rebrand themselves.
I really like that, Patrice.
Mhm.
And when you talked about the intentionality of just shifting the things that you would like to see moving forward, do you think that you will feel less pressured if you start to just reflect in this last quarter? Or should a professional wait until the beginning of the first quarter of the year to make those reflections? Which time do you think is better to have less stress in doing this process?
So I think that it's really up to the individual how they work best. Me personally, when I have time to really, like in this case, we have
Mm-hmm.
not chronologically gotten to 2025. So
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like I have time in the month of, well, the rest of October, November, and December. That gives me about, what, 9 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I can say, okay, over these 9 weeks, even with the holidays in between, here are a few things that I can do and see the progress that I'm
Mm-hmm.
making for that. Other people can hit the ground running and be like, "Ooh, January 1, I'm ready to go." So you have to know yourself, and that
That's
comes
right.
through that reflection. So I think personally, for me, as a planner, is that I am going to put myself so that I'm not competing with the surge of people that are starting to make changes in January. I'm going to start those changes now, and as the elders would say, the early bird gets the worm, right?
That's
So
true.
I can begin to establish that network strategically without making a lot of noise. I can position myself for growth. I can, think about, for example, we were just talking about recognition, the things that I want to share when I'm meeting with these people about the
Mm-hmm.
accomplishments that I've made this year, and also what I'm looking forward to next year. So I think it's the greatest way for you to really highlight what your biggest wins have been so far, and
Mm-hmm.
also launch into 2024 with that energy. So it gives me a running start. So that's my personal advice.
So I would like to ask you, what strategies do you recommend for professionals who need to pinpoint what part of their role has been most fulfilling when they're
Mm-hmm.
looking to do this reflection versus those things that really made them feel as though the career was not a good fit for them? How do they
Right.
just pinpoint those things in their reflection?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So there would be two ways that I recommend they look at it. So it's kind of like a primary and a secondary.
Mm-hmm.
The primary list would be based on the things that when they do them, it's like they almost get lost in the time. So, for example, on my job right now, because I work 9 to 5, when I have opportunities to teach or to coach my colleagues or actual, client, that's the part of my job I love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could do that all day. But that's probably about 10% of my 40-hour week. But those 4 hours make the 36 hours worth it. In the
Yeah.
36 hours, I'm, making PowerPoints and dealing with cranky colleagues and all kinds of stuff. So that
Mm-hmm.
part, right, I have to get through that stuff to get to the 4 hours of coaching. So my primary in that case is doing the things that you really love to do that you could do all day and not even keep track of time. The secondary things would be the things that you know how to do well, but they're a part of the job and they're more, I'm going to say, necessary than enjoyed. So start with
Mhm.
what you love and then go to what you are really good at doing that you have to do as your part of the job. That's what I would recommend.
I like that because how often do we just stop and think about the things that we really enjoy doing
Mhm.
versus the things that we really care not to do? So that's
Yes,
a
but they're
great way.
required.
Yeah, that's a great way to just stop and start off with the reflection.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
how do you think we should use the when we start to do this assessment of our career?
Mhm.
How good or what do you think the benefit is to listening to our colleagues that work with us the
Mhm.
majority of the time, or
Mhm.
someone in our professional space who can offer feedback to us? Do you think this is something that we should include in our reflection?
I think it could be good, but I think you also have to be very wise, right, with who
Mhm,
you get this information from and how you position this question or the seeking out this information.
mhm,
So, from your trusted, I'm going to call it advisors, right? Because let me back it up. There's three, I'm going to say, main groups of people in the network or three circles of influence. And those three groups are your champions,
mhm,
your colleagues, and your collaborators. So your champions would be like, people that are in higher levels that you aspire to go to, that, the people that are your supervisors or, the bosses 2 levels up that can make a decision, that can speak your name in rooms that you're not in and make a difference,
mhm,
right? Good or bad. So those are your champions. The second are your colleagues. Those are your people that sit shoulder to shoulder with you, that see you in the grind every day, that know your work ethic, that know, how you drive results, that, understand your, I'm going to say, your chemistry, and, you vibe with them, right? Those are
mhm,
your colleagues. The third group is your collaborators. So these are groups that sit adjacent to you. So, for example, if you were at a school, for example, and you're a teacher, this would be the people in the administration office, or if you were an instructional teacher, the coach would know how you work, that sort of thing. So,
mhm,
people that don't necessarily benefit from what you directly do, but they're a part of the ecosystem that you're in. And so they
mhm,
understand how you come to the table. When you're seeking this advice out of those groups, you can ask them, like, what do you think I'm best at? Where do you see me shine? How well
mhm,
do you think I'm doing? Now, you want to make sure that when you're listening to this advice or this response or this summary of how you're doing, you take some, leave some. As the elders would
mhm.
say, you eat the meat, you leave the bones. You
That's right. Mhm,
understand, what it is, because what you will unearth sometimes is that we're so close to the work that we don't see that, for example, one of your talents may be, you're really good with people. You really know
mhm,
how to read under what people are saying, when they say something, or you're really good at body language, or you're really good at breaking down complex ideas, or whatever the case might be. It helps to give you words to things that you just do naturally, that you think
mhm,
are no big deal, but other people can see in you. They can see that light in
mhm,
you. The next thing I think that's really important is that as you go to, let's say, your collaborators, I think it's important for you to hear what they say, because they don't directly benefit, right, from you. They don't have a dog in the fight, but they will give you, I think, some perspective that's a layer out from the people that are shoulder to shoulder with you. And
mhm.
they can help you to see, like, areas that you can pivot to, for example, because if you're talking to the coach, for example, and you're an instructional teacher, that coach can tell you about your team dynamics in a way that your colleague may not be able to see you, because
That's
that person has seen you interact with your colleagues or
mhm,
interact with parents, or that sort of thing. The third is the champions. Now, if you get really good at delivering how you create impact, the results that you've driven, and you can go to a leader that's, at a higher level than you and say, hey, Mr. or Miss Leader, this is what I've been able to do, and these are the results that we've had. Or I would like to do XYZ and I've gotten to this point, but I'm not sure what my next point was. And I know that you have this experience. You're showing up as a thought leader, a thought
mhm,
partner to that
mhm.
person. So typically you trigger something in that person. They can see something in you as a future leader that they're
Mhm.
like, oh, you know what? Patrice is a disruptor. I need to have her on my team when I'm, solving X, Y, and Z, that type
Mhm.
of thing. And so you want to make sure that, you're very intentional about gathering that information and use good wisdom when you're asking for that information so that you, as you're building, that rebrand, as you're networking to expand, the people that are impacting you. And as you're thinking through like, okay, so I did do these things. I am
Mhm.
pretty all right at what I'm doing. And, you're sharing, your results and your impact. You really do so from an informed space. And it's not just what you know, but what other people have seen through you.
Oh, I really love how you shared the description of the three positions and how they align with where you are in your
Mm-hmm.
position and how they could just offer their feedback to you. So
Mm-hmm.
when we get these things and we hear the feedback from these different people in our lives or in our career spaces, how do we then take this? Because when we start to think about shifting to a career, we're hearing all of these good strengths that we have and how we could transform this into another career possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when we think about it, it can bring doubt. And even though it's at an exciting time to try to transition to a new career, it's
Mm-hmm.
also a time where people can start to anticipate the things that can go wrong with that process. So,
Mm-hmm.
just from your experience, what are some of the common pitfalls that people have when they start to think about or make the next steps to a career shift? What are some of the things that go wrong if they have not thought about this effectively and just thought the whole process through?
Right, right, right. So some of the things I think that can go wrong is that if they are not clear on what skills, for example, they bring to the table, then they're unclear on what information that they should listen
True.
to or not listen to or weigh in on or let go. And when I say that, I mean as they're thinking about their professional, I'm going to say story, right? Because everybody
Mhm.
can relate to the story. If you think of something like, what you call it, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? We
Mhm.
know she went to her grandmother's house and, she went and they asked if she wanted porridge and then, the wolf tricked her. Like, we know the buildup, right?
Mhm.
And then we know the climax and then we know how she got out of it. So
That's
if you
right.
think of your story in that way, with regards to your skills and your experience, like what is your story? You have to be clear on your story before you start talking to people, because if not, like you said, it can become a like an analysis paralysis. Like, well, I'm not sure, and maybe I shouldn't say no, no, no. Like I knew before I got into consulting that I liked the interaction of helping people to learn something,
Mhm.
right? Like taking a complex concept and breaking it down into pieces, because that was how I learned best, right? Because there are different
Mhm.
ways of learning. Repetition and rote methods were not good for me. But if you took a puzzle that was put together and you broke it apart, I worked really well at fitting the pieces together, even if it took
Mhm.
me all day, for example. So I could
Mhm.
tell that story. People need to understand what their story is and relate it to where they want to go. So once they're clear on what their story is, and then
Mhm.
they're just looking for supporting evidence, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
that's one of the best ways to avoid the pitfalls of too many voices, right, in your head, and you're not sure, and then your limiting beliefs come up, and your imposter syndrome and all the different things.
Mhm.
So even if you haven't narrowed it down to your next job title, if you are clear on the type of work you want to do, do you want to be in the office or do you want to work by yourself? Do you want to travel or do you want to go in, 5 days a week? Are you
Mhm.
clear that, you like working behind a computer or you need to interact with people? Do you like, healthcare or do you like, computers? You can take it to that macro level and say, well, I definitely like these things. I definitely don't these things.
Mhm.
So if you get to that space, then that gives you the grace to be able to say, well, while you may not be able to say, I want to work at X company doing this job, you can say, well, I'd like to do these types of things. And then
Mhm.
it's through conversations like this with you doing, for example, the resume revive, or myself as a coach, we can
Mhm.
hear, just like when you go to a doctor, from the
Mhm.
symptoms that they share, their skills, what the diagnosis could be, for example, for where they want to go. So if someone tells me that they like interacting with people and they like learning continuously and that sort of thing, but they hate teaching, I could say to them, well, there are many other jobs that use teaching skills
That's
that
right.
don't require
Mhm.
you to be a teacher. So, for
Mhm.
example, you could consider, becoming a consultant, for example, or you could
Yeah.
consider writing curriculum. There's a lot of different options and spaces that you could do it. So, I think it's important that you have to first get clear on what it is that lights you up, and then you
Mhm.
go to where people have the information to help you decipher what that would look like, and that helps you to point you in the right direction.
Okay. Thank you so much for providing those great suggestions to help you just to align who you need to talk to and where you need to
Hmm.
go to move forward in identifying these things. I
Yes.
wanted to ask you, and you kind of hit on it for a while. I wanted to talk through how can professionals map out what skills they have when
Hmm.
trying to identify the role that they're targeting
Hmm.
against the skills gaps that they have. So they may have some skills and then there may be a deficit in places, but this is a role that they're targeting. How
Yes.
would you help them to just overcome the barriers and identify whether or not they should proceed with that target role or just maybe stay back a while and try to gain more skills and develop better in the area?
Hmm. Hmm. I would say the first place, especially if you're in a corporate space, it may sound silly, but the job boards. And when I
Hmm.
say the job boards, so for example, if we stay with our teacher example, when you go in and you look at any job opportunity, it will have a description of the company, but also requirements that they have, that they'd like you to meet when you're applying, in addition
Hmm.
to nice to have skills. I would look at that as a starting place, just to give you the language if you're not clear on what your key skills are. I would look at those skills, but I would not just look at them at that one particular organization that you're working for. I'd look at that organization and potentially two others, because a
Hmm.
teacher is not a teacher is not a teacher, right? Different schools at different levels may have different, requirements.
That's
So I
true.
would look at them and then use those to feed into what you know to be true for yourself. So if, for example, we look at three different teacher positions, let's say at a high school. And when you look at those skills, you almost create a laundry list, right? And looking at those skills and requirements, which things do you have? Is there certain, are there certain what do you call it, specializations or majors
Hmm.
they're looking for? Are
Hmm.
there certain years of experience or certifications they're looking for? Are there certain years of actually doing the job that they're looking for? And see how many of those things you actually can check the box on. The ones that you can check the box on, great, if you want to continue doing them. If
Hmm.
not, I would mark them, almost highlight them or cross them out in red, like, yes, I can do these things, but this is not what I want to continue to do.
Hmm.
Then, for the ones that you don't meet, for example, then that will help you to figure out, well, if you want to stay in that particular industry, so let's say education, but
Hmm.
let's say you want to do something else, you would look up that title. So, for example, if you want to go from teaching to, let's say, curriculum design, you have a lot of the curriculum design needs in teaching, but maybe you don't have, something, right, with regards to maybe using different types of software as an
Hmm.
instructional designer. So then you would look at what are the different types of software you need to know to start out as an instructional designer, and that creates a gap. In the work
Hmm.
that I do from day to day, that's called a gap analysis. So you
Hmm.
basically look at everything that's available, in other words, all the skills that you have, and then based on those skills, where you'd like to go in your future role. And that's where you can identify the holes and how you can begin to plug them to get to the new space you want to go to. Sometimes it's when you look at those things that you know how to do, you're basically like, well, okay, if I have 10 things listed here, but I really only want to do six of them, if I do six, then I can pivot into another career based on that. Again, that's something that you can literally, at this point, Now with AI, you can put the things you like to do in the chat GPT and other AI tools and say, hey, I have these skills. I'm currently in this role. What other roles am I qualified to do, for
Mm-hmm.
example? And then
Yes.
you can ask them, well, share me the research on this. What are the income? What's the income for it? What's the forecast on this role, in another
Mm-hmm.
20 years? Like, what are other areas that I can use this in? So that's where you can really, forecast what you'd like to do and how you can do it using the tools that we have in 2024.
Yes. And I don't have that as something we was going to discuss, but I just wanted to say that it's important to also stay up to date with the times when you're thinking
Yes,
about transitioning to a career,
that's right.
because we do have a lot of things now that AI just provide quick and easy tools for. And if you're not up to date with how to use this technology, then you'll be left behind.
It's
No
a
one
great partner. It's a
is
great partner.
a
You still
great
have to, of
one.
course, use, good wisdom with it,
Good
but it's an
wisdom and
accelerator
research.
for sure.
Mhm. Yes, it accelerates.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just transition a little and talk about how we could use also networking
Mm-hmm.
to help us to maybe transition into different roles. I know as the holidays are approaching, there will be a lot of different opportunities for networking.
Yes,
And
right.
so, how could a professional or someone who's looking to transition into a specific space use this opportunity to just leverage this opportunity, but not come off as an opportunist, but
That's right.
to just strategize and just use these networking events to move into a position that they may be looking into?
That is a great question because let me tell you, the holiday time is an excellent time to network because people are generally more open to having informal conversations, whether it's a virtual holiday party or a direct message on LinkedIn or even sending out personalized holiday cards. These small actions can really have a big impact on how people see you, how you show up. So when you're reconnecting or connecting with these people, lead with what you have done and how you can help them. So, for
Mhm,
example, you and I are talking right now, and I know you're doing the resume revive. I would say to you, like, hey, Kamika, we haven't spoken a long time. How can I be of service to you? Because I'm
mhm,
out here doing this, RNA work. And you may say to me, well, you know what, Patrice, I'm gonna have this show. Can you come on and talk to me? So you start by giving. You start
yeah,
by impacting people and helping them to drive their vision. And when you do that, and it's not with an expectation of getting it back, but when you put good out, good
mhm,
comes back in, right? Reciprocity. And it won't necessarily be from that person, but it's a way of adding value in a way that's memorable, that's thoughtful, and it really brands you to that person as, it was good talking to so and
mhm,
so. I really want to stay connected with them. Or as they're meeting other people, they can pass your name along and you haven't even asked them
yeah,
because you made such an impression on them. And it was a
mhm,
way that you created a place for you to be recognized that by that person of, well, wait, they didn't come to me to like ask me, can you get me a job? They
mhm,
came to me because they were genuinely interested in me and what I have to do, say, feel, whatever the case might be.
mhm.
So I think it's really important that people keep that in mind, that they add to versus take from as they're going through their networking, whether it's the holiday season or not.
Mhm. And you talked about your brand. I heard you say something about your brand, so I wanted to talk through when you build your professional brand,
Hmm.
how can you build it so that people aren't just focused on your skills, but they also take into account your personal values
Yes.
as well as those things that motivate you in your career?
I think you have to be clear on what you are first, right? So I know, for example, that I love teaching, for example. I also know that I love change, for example. So
Mhm,
I do a lot of organizational change management where we go into organizations and, well, excuse me, organizations will call us and say, we have this issue. We want to implement a new software. So that's a change. Well,
mhm,
I bring the people side of that change. So the teaching is the people, the change is always learning. And those are two things I know about myself. So as you're thinking about how you want to brand yourself, you have that story in your head about who you are and telling that story of how you've been able to do that in other spaces. So if you think about branding, and your networking, I would say that, for example, if I had just met you and you say, hey, Patrice, it's nice to meet you. Tell me about yourself. I would start to talk about, the type of work that I've done at my most recent client, for example. I would ask you about the type of work that you're doing, and then I would make a connection between what you're telling me and what I've done, right?
Mhm.
So that there's a space for us to have some commonality, right? So that we have a human connection. I think that's really important, and a genuine human connection. And you may find that sometimes in the moment you don't see the immediate connection, but you still say, well, I haven't done that before. But I've been in situations where I've heard, XYZ, and you try to find a way to bridge, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
What that person is sharing with you and how you and that person can connect. So I think that's how you set up your brand, by being really clear on who you are and showing up as a true human.
I like that. Showing
Mhm.
up as a true human.
Mhm.
And when I think some more about that, I think about how important our mindset plays in a part of moving in two
Mhm.
different roles. If we
Mhm.
always think through those self-sabotaging things, then we will hold ourselves back from opportunities. What are some strategies that you could suggest to people to create those positive mindsets when they are in position to transition and or not really feeling sure if this is the move they want to make because of
Mhm.
the self-sabotage, but what
Mhm.
are just some ways that they can keep a positive mindset when they think through making the move to a career transition?
Absolutely. So my mother and grandmother, my family's from Jamaica, and
Mhm.
they're much like, I'm gonna say the elders of the South, but they always got a little story, a little saying for everything.
Mhm.
And they would say, "Show me your company, and I'll tell you who you are." And so, if you are in this time of transition where you're looking for forward movement, you need to be around people in similar position. So they may not necessarily be going through a career pivot, but I would say be around like-minded people. Find your tribe. Your people that are, I'm going to say, either at where you are or beyond where you are or where you're aiming to go. And you will find that the way you think about things, the way that you show up, you learn from the people around you just like the people learn from you, right? So if you are around, 10 broke people, you're going to be the 11th. If you're around 10 rich people, you're going to be the 11th, right? So do the same types of things. That's the first thing. Be very conscious of your environment and intentional with your environment. The
Mhm.
second thing is to stay really focused. When I say stay focused, even if you're not sure what your next role is, you know that you want to get another role. So is your LinkedIn together? Is your resume together? Are you networking? Do you know what your brand is? What is your story? Are you looking to see what the market needs right now? Are you up on your technology for 2024? What are the things that you are doing that connects you with your purpose and your achievements and your future vision of what you want to do? And
Mhm.
when you feel uncertain, look back at what you've accomplished, because they call it success. What was it when you forget something? Amnesia, success
Mhm.
amnesia. We will tend to forget the things that we do. So, for example, I was sharing with you that it wasn't until the other day that I was like, well, wait, how many times have I spoken? Because I set the intention at the beginning of this year that I wanted to speak
Mhm.
more. And it wasn't until I was like, oh my goodness, I really have. Because, we set a goal and we hit it. We set a goal and we hit it. We set a goal and we hit it.
That's right.
And we're not always very good at like pausing and be like, well, wait a minute, how much have I really done? Right. So this is
Mhm.
a great time, if you haven't done it already, to just stop and really reflect, like, what did I do in January? What did I do in February? What did I do in March? And if you can't remember, if you use, Outlook or whatever calendaring or whatever it
Mhm.
is that you use, go back and literally make yourself look at it, or look at, sometimes I do it with the pictures on my phone,
Mhm.
for example, or, they'll send you the
Yeah.
reflections on your
Mhm.
phone, and
Yeah.
say, 30 days ago, or this is your month in review or year in review. Like, have your own year in review, because when you look at that and remind yourself of what you've done, you will see that you are not only capable of navigating change, but you're capable of creating your own success. So that when you have this plan to pivot your career, you can break it down into small, manageable steps,
Mhm.
starting with your rebranding, then going to your networking, then showing you're achieving recognition, because you have it right here in black and white. right? You've rebranded yourself, even if it's in hindsight, over this past year in some way, shape, or form. So if you looked at your, your emails, if you looked at your pictures, what did it say you did? And
Mm-hmm.
then when you see that, you can literally say, oh, well, earlier this year, I've done this so many times, or I got this award, or I made this change, or whatever the case might be. And you can use that to really document your progress and see the tangible proof of the impact you've already made and would like to grow even further. Those are the things I'd recommend.
I like that, especially the pause, because uh, most times you don't take the time to just pause and think through some things. I know we
Mm-hmm.
talked about the phone bringing up the memories.
Mm-hmm.
Some things I've done, I completely forgot it. I did some of the,
That's right. That's
or
right.
attended or was a part of workshops in different
Yes.
companies. So you do have to take the pause and just take some moments to reflect on
Mm-hmm.
what you have done so far. And it
That's
would
right.
be some things you probably hadn't even thought
Thought of.
of, or just completely forgotten that you've done. So
That's right.
those are some great techniques. I also want to ask you for our final question.
Mm-hmm.
What are some practical, I guess, techniques or daily routines that you could give to our viewers to help them to build resilience and also stay productive when they
Mm-hmm.
think through their different career circumstances?
Would say, you know, resilience. That's such a word. Resilience is something I feel like has a good and bad connotation. Because resilience means that you got over something hard.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's not that you need to get over something hard, it's that you have something that doesn't work for you.
that's
You know
right.
what I mean? So it's not always that it's like, you're about to be laid off or whatever. You just
Hmm.
know that what you're doing, you're not in your right space,
Not a
right?
good fit.
So I
Mhm.
think the first thing is stay connected to where you've actually done or created impact that you really enjoyed. Something that you, in those reflections we were just talking about, something that
Mhm.
really that brings a smile to your face. Something that you're like, you know what, I did that. I think
Yeah.
that creates positive resilience, right?
Mhm.
So it's not just I hate my job or I don't like this work. It's the other side is I did this and I really enjoyed that. Or I figured out a productivity hack. If for example, if I wake up and let's say start earlier, if I can get more done between 6 to 8 than I can from 8 to 10. So I do that 3 times a week and then I'm able to get some time back. Well, working from home, I could go outside, for example,
Mhm.
and really, get some sunlight or fresh air or whatever. You know,
Yes.
I think creating the space to make more of those small wins, those small moments, I think that's how you maintain and create resilience, positive resilience that puts money in the bank so that when things get hard and you can't, withdraw, you have that savings there, right? You've banked up some of that goodness from the, hey, I saved a few minutes here or I had a couple wins there, and you document those things, right? When you do have those few extra minutes to go outside, you take a picture of the sun or a beautiful flower or a bird flying by or something to kind of capture that moment so that in the moments when you feel like you're chained to your computer, you can pull that up and be like, nope,
That's
nope,
right.
nope. I know that I'm doing this today because I will have days like that. Again,
Mhm.
I think it's by regularly reminding yourself not only of what you have accomplished, but what you can do to continue to accomplish and really build that confidence. Remind yourself of what you've been able to create from nothing. It helps you to maintain that focus during those challenging times and really keep track of those wins, big and small. Everyone adds up. So your win today could be that you got through all your emails. Your win today could be that you had a new client. Your win today could be that you walked at lunch versus just being inside. But track those wins and document them, write them down, journal about them, whether it be on your phone or in an actual journal. But that to me creates your successes because in the days that you're not able to do the things you want to, you can look back through that and be like, oh, yeah, that's right. I did do that. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that or creating that again for myself.
Oh, thank you, Patrice. You have really provided a wealth of information, and I appreciate you just coming on, just sharing some of these effective approaches that you have used, as well as a lot of powerful strategies that you have provided today as we start to think about the end of the year and how we could use this time to reflect on our journey so far and build on to what we would want to accomplish for the upcoming year. So I do not want to leave this time without giving you the opportunity to share with the audience how they can reach out to you for your services, any of your social media um, uh, links that they can find you or your website. So I just want to
Yes.
give you the moment to do that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Kamiki. My website is www.careernomad.org. And in addition to that, you can find me on LinkedIn, Patrice Williams Lindo, the Career Nomad. If you type in Career Nomad, it'll pop right up. And the way that people can work with me is that I offer a free 30-minute audit of your career. So if you are interested in that because you're not sure of where to start, it's a strategy session where you literally would get to a place where, based on your rebranding, networking, and ability to achieve recognition, I take a look at your LinkedIn, I take a look at your resume, I talk to you about what goals you'd like to achieve, and we can do that for 30 minutes. And a lot of times, just hearing that alone, the light bulb goes off and people are like, oh, well, wait a minute, I really do have, something to offer. And
Mhm.
directionally they know where to go. But that's just the inner teacher in me. I like to help people really see the greatness within.
Mhm.
And once they're able to do that, that in and of itself is so empowering. And I must say, that's the best part of my job, helping people to feel empowered and create the impact that they're here to provide.
Thank you so much, Patrice. I
Mhm.
love that. And you are definitely a teacher. I saw the teacher in you.
Oh,
I
thank
love
you.
that. Yeah. And so, to end, I would like to say if anyone is thinking about a career shift or need to update their professional career documents, you can reach me by going to the resumerevive.com and just letting me know what services you are interested in. We also rebrand your documents so that you can build confidence in your professional career journey. So, we are ending this conversation on today. And I would like to remind you that if you have not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification button. And we will see you at our next the Resume Revive YouTube event. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you for having me.